Hi there. It's Claire from Virgin Meal Times here, and welcome to my first interview. I'm very, very excited today to be welcoming Anna to this interview. So Anna runs her own business as well, and it's called One Step Outside. So Anna, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone and tell us about what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Claire. I'm honoured to be your first, I'm sure, of many guests. And hello, everybody. I hope this will be interesting for you. So my name's Anna Lundberg. I founded One Step Outside, which is based on the quote, everything you've ever wanted is one step outside your comfort zone. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a moment, but I've come to it quite organically over the years. I have a background in marketing and business from big companies. I now actually help other people who are sort of stuck in jobs that they're not super happy with work out what it is they want to do, and above all to transition out of that corporate sort of big full-time employee world where you're beholden to a salary and so on, to actually start your own business. And in the context, of course, of having young children, I really believe that's the best way to have the freedom and flexibility that we so desperately need, but also to be doing really interesting, important, fulfilling work. So that's what I do these days. And yeah, I have a little girl who's almost 16 months now and another on the way. So that's going to be an exciting challenge for us all, I'm sure.
Indeed it is. So congratulations. Hope all goes well when it happens. So how did you get started? Can you tell us a bit about how you got into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as for most people, there are lots of twists and turns, and it certainly wasn't a linear process. And, you know, some people are lucky to have that one true calling and passion from their younger. For the rest of us, unfortunately, that's probably not the case. And I ended up, as I think many people do, accidentally doing marketing in Procter & Gamble, so big multinational corporation. But I'd studied something totally different. It was never 100% what I wanted to do. So I always felt a bit, it was an amazing job, good salary, and I loved the colleagues I had, and I learned so much, and it was really exciting. So it's always hard. It wasn't that kind of thing that I hated it, or I was, you know, I recognized that I was very privileged. However, it wasn't something fundamentally that I really was passionate about. I felt there was a bit of a disconnect between wanting to do something more meaningful, I guess, in the world, and I was just working on PowerPoint presentations and Excel sheets and so on. So in 2013, I left there without really having a plan. I should say I was single, no mortgage, no dog in a Volvo, any obligations at all. So it was very easy to, well, I say easy, it was very traumatic for myself. You know, I went through a lot of soul searching, but certainly there was no one else to sort of have to, you know, agree with, I guess, to approve that. And I was relatively carefree, burden free. So I took some time to travel, to do lots of soul searching, reading, exploring. And as I said, it's taken some twists and turns, but over time I found a way to combine the marketing and business, which, you know, I have 10 plus years of experience in that, so it's a shame to completely throw that to one side. But I also discovered I was really excited about writing and, again, having more autonomy over my own time. And I discovered coaching, which is, I'm sure, something that so many people have heard of now. It's such a growing industry, whether it's life coaching, health coaching, and whatever it might be. And for me, I'm now finding a way to combine those two things. So as I said, I help professionals work out what it is they want to do. So there's that big element of kind of coaching, really reflecting on your values and what's important to you and what do you want your life to look like. But then I combine that, as I said, with the branding, business expertise. Okay, what do you want your business model to look like, and how can you build your personal brand and your content and social media and so on. So for me, that keeps things really interesting. I'm using my experience, but I found a way to both have that flexibility, as I said. And again, I was young and single. I wasn't really thinking about having children. That wasn't the reason why I did it. But as it turns out, it's been very gratuitous, and it works really well now to be able to manage my time a bit more around having young kids. And so, yeah, so that's a sort of, in a nutshell, a little bit around the twists and turns, of course, many decision points along the way and so on, but a really nice organic way of kind of, it's happened gradually over time. And I'm really happy with how it's looking at the moment.
Fantastic. So you mentioned there obviously that it was different for you because you didn't have children when you first started up, and obviously a lot of people that are be watching this do have children and young ones under the age of 5. Do you have an example of somebody who's similar to them that you might have worked with in the past, and you know what sort of transformation might have happened for them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because when I started, I've always, in theory, believed, as I said, that having your own business is the best way to have the freedom and flexibility around children. However, because I didn't have my own, I always felt a bit of a fraud in terms of, I was just saying, in fact, literally when I was pregnant with my daughter last year, I wrote the series of blog posts around how to manage a business with a baby. And I thought, oh, I haven't actually had a baby yet, so this could go horribly wrong. Now, when I look back, I stand by those articles 100%. And I think the beauty of everything that I had been learning and teaching and so on is that it works whether you want to travel the world, as a digital nomad, being single and so on, or you just want more time to yourself, or you want to have children. I think the same principles apply. So I'm happy to say that it has more or less worked out as I thought. But for that reason, I think I've worked mainly with people who were more at the stage I was at. So they're thinking of having children going forwards, in which case that's sort of an ideal place, I think, to start having a business. Having said that, it's totally possible. And I've worked with people who have had, sometimes, they've been a bit like myself, pregnant and have a toddler already, and they've somehow managed to juggle that. Now, we all have to make the individual choice of if that's something we want to be doing, and it takes a lot of energy and so on. But sometimes we just get to that point. And obviously this year, 2020, has been a bit of a strange one, where perhaps we've been forced into a situation where we're no longer working somewhere, or we've chosen to leave. We've had a different perspective. Lots of people obviously not commuting now, working from home, and maybe seeing a glimpse of what it could be like to have that flexibility and so on. And so it's quite an exciting opportunity to think about, okay, what could things look like if I were to be able to work on my own terms and so on. So I guess in terms of more concretely what to do, I always say, and you mentioned my brand is one step outside, but I talk about reimagining success. And I think for a lot of us, certainly for me, success was an inherited concept of school and university, and you have a good job and a salary and the promotion, and even the house and the mortgage and the car and the 2.4 children, whatever the average is supposed to be. I guess it used to be, at least. And whereas actually, there's a lot more, and we get to, whether we get to 30, 40, 50 and look around and think, hang on a second, I'm not getting to pick my kids up from school, or I'm feeling torn. That's my worst case. You feel like when you're at work, you're stressed about your children. When you're with your children, you're stressed about work. And that's something that we just don't want to be in that situation. So really think about, what does success look like for me? How could this work? How many hours a week do I want to be working? And it looks so different to everybody, doesn't it? We some of us want to go all in with a career, and the children is either something we don't want at all, or it's almost an afterthought. For some, it's all about the children. Most of us probably fall somewhere in between. So my advice to everyone is always, really think about what would be the ideal for you. And of course, it will take us time to get to that ideal from where we are today, but knowing that that's what we're working towards can be really powerful. So then the question is, we look at, okay, in practical terms, how can you use your skills and experience to, relatively easily launch something? A product business obviously is something that would require lots of money to invest potentially in a product and inventory and so on, whereas actually coaching, consulting, teaching online, there are so many possibilities now with technology that doesn't require a lot of investment, and that you can quite easily package up what you know into a service. You can start selling, working from home, doing lives in your Facebook group or whatever it is, and there's a great way to connect with people around the world. So really, working out what it is you want to do. How can we begin to take what you already have and so and package that up, and then managing that again around whatever your obligations are in terms of very young children, slightly older children, school, childcare, what that looks like. So it's of course very individual, but again, I'm such a strong believer that it's worth it. It's really the best way. And I certainly can't imagine going back now to being beholden to a boss who tells me I can't take holiday off, or who gives me a hard time for going to the doctors with my daughter who's sick or whatever. So when I'm my own boss, I need to obviously be very empathetic and generous to myself, but I think it's such a fantastic opportunity for us all to take that, to be able to manage our own time and still do interesting work as a mother, as a father, but also have the quality time we want with our children.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said there, absolutely. And for me, as a parent who's got older children, but started their business when they were younger, it is so personal, isn't it? My needs when the boys were 3 are very different to now when they're 15. I can invest so much more time it's much more flexible because, you know, you're not picking them up from school and taking them straight to an activity and things like this. But I really appreciated that flexibility when they were age 7 or whatever, when they are going to things right, left and centre after school every single day. You know, you're like, well, where am I going today? Where? Oh, who am I taking with me? And who's coming to my house for a play date and all this stuff. That kind of level of busyness, to be able to manage that kind of after school, but focus really well on work during the school hours while they were away, was fantastic. And I can't imagine a job that would have allowed me that same flexibility. Certainly the work that I was doing before I stopped work. I stopped work when they were age 3, and I was doing part-time work up until then. And yeah, I couldn't imagine any other way of organising myself that would have given me that flexibility. It just didn't exist.
I wasn't. That's amazing. And no, you see, yeah. But that's amazing because, as you've seen, it evolves for you as well, right? Because for me, initially, I was sort of single and I wanted to be location independent to be able to travel the world and take my business with me. Then I fell in love and had a baby. And then, of course, my definition of success and the way that looks was very different. And then, as you say, I'm sure, and people keep telling me very generously that things get harder and harder the older the children are. So I look forward to that. But, you know, every age, I think, has different challenges.
That's a lie.
Okay, good.
Thank you. I can tell you for a fact, in my experience, that is
good. Okay, that's reassuring. I think every age has its challenges, doesn't it? Yeah.
Teenagers, in my experience, are absolutely brilliant. And people
amazing. Okay.
They seem to say that, like, they get to age 10 or something, and they're all right at age 10, and then somewhere along the lines they kind of go off the rails when they get to teenage. Not in my experience.
Oh, good. But again, I guess that is quite personal, isn't it? Yeah. But I love that you've been able to do that. And I guess, yeah, so now, you know, no childcare right now for me. So I'm working when Sophia is napping, and hopefully childcare in the near future. And then, of course, school will give you at least those hours. And what's interesting is, and I've read so many studies on this, you know, apparently on average, we do 2 hours and 54 minutes of productive work a day, I think it is. So, you know, we think, oh my goodness, you know, you've got to have the 9 to 5, 40-hour work weeks. But if you imagine being in an office, and I'm sure people who work in office will say, oh no, we work way more than that. But actually, if you track it, and this is on average, if you think about meetings and coffee breaks and lunch and emails and faffing around and you know, and not to mention the commute and so on, it's quite interesting. So if that's the case, if we actually do 3 hours, or I think it's sort of 12 and a half hours a week or whatever that is, I'd much rather do that. And I'm sure it sounds like you were thinking the same, that, you know, while the kids are at school or whatever, I sit down, I know I've only got, you know, max 2 hours until Sophia works up. You can be damn sure that I'm going to be a whole lot more productive than if I think I've got the whole day to myself and I can, I'll just go and get another tea and so on, right? So they always say, you know, if you want something done, give it to a single mum with 10 children or whatever they say. But I mean, the truth is, if you have a more focused time, you just have to be super clear. These are my goals. These are my priorities. Boom, boom, boom. And then kids are home or back from nursery or awake, or whatever it is, then, you know, shut the laptop down, close the door to study, and then I'm with them. So it's just a different way of thinking about it. Again, that, you know, you don't have to be doing 40+ hour weeks actually to get the results you want.
Yeah, and I think in today's climate, then that's really kind of come up the agenda as well, hasn't it? In the past 6 months, everybody suddenly realised that actually it's possible to work from home without having to go to 3 meetings a day. It just doesn't have to happen. There doesn't need to be that much face-to-face contact with everybody all getting together in the one room. It doesn't need to exist. I think people are, you know, perhaps they're trusting themselves a little bit more and just kind of getting on with the work.
It's an interesting social experiment, isn't it? Because both companies and employees have had to come to terms with this. And some people hate it, and some people think, you know, it's difficult to balance. And of course, it takes some time to find that new normal, as we say now. It's a lot about setting boundaries and deciding maybe with your partner how that works and so on. Some people might feel a bit isolated and enjoy the face-to-face, but even when you have your own business, COVID notwithstanding, you know, we can go to co-working spaces, or we can build a team and we can meet clients and so on. So it's not that we have to just work at our desk by ourselves, but as you say, hopefully this is sort of giving people an idea of, hey, what it could look like, even if it's more working from home, but still some days in an office, or, you know, that there are different constellations of work that can work much better than, you know, in our case, sitting on the M25 or packing in as sardines on the tube to get to work, you know, to sit there and then as you say, be in sort of mindless meetings and so on all
Yeah.
day. So I think it's definitely exciting. Hopefully we have the mental energy and capacity now to take a step back and think about, hang on, what could it look like in a different way for me individually, especially, but also maybe for society.
And I think now is definitely the key time, with schools going back and, things starting to kind of change a little bit in terms of people are kind of getting out and driving to places and things, and we're not all kind of stuck in our own houses quite so much as we were 6 months ago. But it's really raised people's awareness. And, I'm definitely aware of conversations that I've had with parents where, they're thinking, do I really want to continue doing this part-time job, or are there other opportunities for me? I've got an accountancy background. Can I perhaps set up my own business? Or, that's just an example that I know of. So I'm sure there's plenty more people out there than that have other skills and knowledge. And like you say, the service industries, it just suits so perfectly.
And ironically, it's so strange because clients I work with, they tend to, or we all tend to have held on to this assumption that having a job and a salary is secure and safe. And as it turns out, I think unfortunately, harshly, we've realized that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And so again, I really do believe, and I see it with myself and clients, if we manage our own time in business, of course, some businesses, and particularly, of course, travel and entertainment, there have been industries that have been really hard hit, and it's very difficult to have foreseen the impact this year. And there's a lot of struggling freelancers and entrepreneurs and so on. However, if we're able to set up our own business in a way where we've diversified income streams, so actually that can give us more stability and flexibility money wise and so on, versus an employer who can ultimately let us go without really caring about that at all, because ultimately they only care about profit, if we're going to be honest. So, and even if it's actually, and this might sound off-putting to someone who's already juggling young children, but having a side hustle, as they call it these days, trying to build up a little bit of an extra stream alongside a job, of course, could be sort of a good way to begin to dip your toes into it without necessarily, as I did, perhaps foolishly quit completely and launch yourself into a new business without really knowing what you're doing.
I did it your way as well. And
it can work out.
It can, but I do think that a side hustle is a great way to start. I think if people are able to do that and they have the capacity to do that, then Do you work with
That's the question, isn't it? If you have, sorry?
Do you work with lots of people who choose that route, or is
so it's always the eternal debate, because there's pros and cons, right? Doing a side hustle, it means that you have the stability and security of the steady income, while you can explore, maybe you're not yet sure what idea you have and is it going to work, you can do some market research, you can see, and so on. However, there comes a point, and again, especially if you're only working part-time, you're adding more things to your plate, you have young children, then going, oh, okay, so you're saying I need to have a job and children and health and fitness and hobbies and family, etc., and add a new business. Sometimes that's just too much. And I've had several clients, many clients like ourselves, who have maybe just got to that point, you know what, I don't want to stay here anymore. Financially, of course, we need to look at what's viable, but actually to free up the time, the mental capacity and energy to work on a business, there's the point certainly where we need to go all in, because otherwise, it's very difficult to have the time alongside a full-time job to build a full-time business. But it's definitely, when you're first starting tentatively to think about it, I think it's really great. You don't have to take the massive leap. Again, my company is one step outside, so you don't have to throw caution to the wind and put your children up for adoption and tell your partner, sorry, like I'm not going to be earning any money anymore. There are lots of little steps we can take to explore, okay, well, that accounting background I have, what could it look like to maybe start building that? Who could my clients be? What would I charge? How many clients would I need? How many hours would I need to work in order for that to be viable for me? So exploring the option is definitely something you can do alongside a job. You don't have to take the massive leap, the risk. And certainly when we have children, mortgages and so on, that's not to be recommended. So we need to be a bit more sensible.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I totally get it. I like your one step outside. It could be a small step, it could be a big step, but it does depend on so many other factors, and security is going to be a big one for parents, definitely, that they'll want to be able to meet all their commitments. So if you were to give people a top tip, would it be to sort of do that exploring their options and what would your top tip be if
it would be exactly that, to be honest, because I think, and again, I've heard it from a client the other day, I mean, there's a lot of pressure you feel like you need to take action. Oh, I want to start a business. Okay, I'm going to do this, and I need to get the website and the business cards and the logo. And actually, I get some clients who come to me and they had an idea, but as we explore more, they realize, oh, this is not really what I want to be doing. It's just something that's recreating. I just feel like I could do it, and it sounds like it would earn me money, and it's not actually going to bring you the fulfillment you want. It's not going to necessarily work around your childcare and whatever it is, right? So definitely my biggest recommendation would be, don't rush it. Take time to explore. Allow yourself to sort of, it sounds perhaps naive, but bear with me, dream big, imagine what could be possible. Oh, I've always wanted to do this, or I had this crazy idea that, just at least let yourself explore. Put it down on a big piece of paper, whatever, and then you can rule it out later. If you think it's too crazy or you don't want to do it, that's fine. But I think just give yourself the option to explore, to consider, and then we narrow down, because the last thing you want to do is, any business is going to take hard work to get up and running. So you don't want to rush into creating something, and then a year from now, you spent a year of time, money, blood, sweat and tears, and actually you're no better off than you were before. You've ended up somewhere that you're not particularly happy with the work you're doing, or it's not working. So giving yourself that time, I often say sort of 3 months is a bit of an arbitrary time. It depends, of course, how much time you can think about it. But really, if you can take some time off, even if it's a weekend away, a bath, a walk by yourself, just try to get yourself, grab a notepad, sit in a park somewhere. Just, if you're a verbal person, just sort of free write what you could imagine for the future. If you're a visual person and arty person, you could potentially do something a bit more creative. I'm more of a words person than I am a picture person, but absolutely. So reimagine, explore, give yourself the opportunity to dream, and then we can worry about the how. But the first thing has to be, find something, the what and the why, as I said, the what you really want to do, why that's going to be important to you, why you think it's the right thing, why it's going to work for your family, and then we can figure out the how. What you don't want to do is rush into the how, or already start giving yourself reasons why it's never going to work before you've even decided what it is you want to do, right? Because it's very easy to shut down any idea you have by saying, that's never going to work, I'll never make money, I won't have time, I'm not good enough, whatever. So push those doubts to one side and allow yourself to explore, to consider. And then once you feel, yes, this is definitely something that I would love to pursue, then you can get the help, join a course, work with a coach, figure out the next steps.
That is brilliant advice. I wish I'd had that advice when I first started. I definitely jumped in with both feet too quickly and didn't think about it enough now that I kind of look back on it in retrospect. So if I had a recommendation, it would definitely be to do that kind of. I did the dream big. I was good at that.
Good. Okay, amazing. Well, there you go.
Very good at the dream big, but I wasn't so good at the, what's the actual impact of choosing that going to be.
And so it's hard to imagine, to some extent we do need to jump in as well, because there's only so much we can do sitting behind a computer screen and planning, right? We do have to try, we need to see what resonates, we need to test things. If we've not done it, we'll never know. But just a little bit of time to explore and so on, to think, so that you don't, the temptation is often, I need to invest in a course or a certification or something, invest lots of money or whatever it is into something. And that's a bit risky, because we don't yet know, is that really the right thing? So definitely try, by all means, jump in if you're excited and passionate about something, but just bear in mind it might take you some time to work it out. So a little bit of planning, a little bit of exploring before probably will save you time and pain further down the line. Yeah,
definitely. And I noticed that you mentioned about setting up websites and logos and things like that. And people maybe thinking that they need all those things, like they kind of need to get all their ducks in a row, but then not thinking about the big picture enough. So they've kind of gone down into the detail of, I've set up a website and I've set up a logo, but I've done all that, and now I'm thinking, do I really want to do that business? It's definitely much more at the beginning about what's the big picture, rather than what do I need in terms of all that detail. I mean, I know people that haven't had a website. I've had a business without a website for quite a long time. So yeah.
Exactly, that is so easy. And I come from a digital marketing background, so it's very strange for me to say you don't need a website or social media and so on, but it's so easy to get caught up in, how do I do a Facebook ad, and I need more people this, and I need an email marketing funnel. And I did that too when I first started. I followed all these gurus, they all, you know, you've got to do webinars and this and Instagram and Facebook, and it's so overwhelming. And actually the truth is, you can absolutely, you know, let's say a coaching business or your business, any kind of, you know, service based, having conversations with people, you know, you can do things perhaps on LinkedIn, existing channels, you can talk to people again outside of COVID. Hopefully we're meeting people. You actually don't need fancy logos and trademarked brand names and whatever else, right? It's so many simple, more sort of human based conversations with people. I have several clients who've been able to, alongside the full-time job, without even updating their LinkedIn profile, because they didn't want to obviously show their employer that they were changing, they've been able to message people, have conversations and get clients that way. So it's absolutely possible. And yeah, it's dangerous, I think, to think that you have to get all those things to I guess it's the fun things in a way, because, you know, having a logo and a website, it does sound exciting and so on, but I can tweak my website 300 times. Nobody's visiting the website, so I'm not going to get any work. Whereas if I'm going out having conversations with people, messaging and so on, that's where things get interesting and being a bit more externally focused. So absolutely, there's so many barriers we can create for ourselves, but actually it can be quite simple if we strip all that away. And as you said, focus on what it is you want to do, who do you want to help, and then start having those conversations with people.
Yeah, brilliant. That is just, yeah, I totally agree, completely agree. It doesn't need to be hugely simple, it's hugely complicated and overwhelming. You know, we can start at least by being simple and practical and just having those conversations, although it is difficult in these times.
But even, you know, I talk about email marketing, you know, I had the tendency to want to get the fancy software to make everything automated and so on. And that's great for when you've got a massive community and thousands of clients, and maybe you want to set yourself up. But actually, again, if you've got 3 clients, you don't need an automated email system to contact them, right? You can actually do that. And worst case, you can pay someone on Fiverr or get a virtual assistant and we're free and tell someone, you know, to help you out there. So I think, again, we make things, as you said, more complicated, and actually start, you know, so many businesses I think have even got to, if that's your ambition, you know, the $1 million mark or whatever, by just doing it, you know, by hand with a Google document, with email, having, you know, putting in you either need time or money, I guess. So if you have more time than money, I would go the manual route, I guess. If you've got the money, by all means, get the fancy stuff and do the ads and get the team and so on. But actually there's a lot you can do just with a bit of, I guess, again, a little bit of blood, a little bit of sweat, but not too much. It doesn't have to be too painful.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people find out more about you and what you offer?
Oh, thank you for asking. So yeah, the brand is One Step Outside. So onestepoutside.com, of course, I do have a website and I have a Facebook group as well, but I've added that over time. So it's grown. So One Step Outside. And if you're a podcast listener, I have my podcast. We're coming up to 100 episodes actually, which is exciting. So Reimagining Success with Anna Lundberg. And it's a lot of what we've talked about today. It's a little bit of dreaming big and big picture. What do you want from life? But also some really tangible, concrete tips on managing your work alongside a young family, productivity and that kind of thing, as well as, you know, how to actually build your business. So hopefully, if this is something you're considering here in terms of, you know, possibly changing career, setting up on your own, or making your business work better for a young family, then the Reimagining Success podcast could be a great place. And again, for me, having, you know, a young child, I think it's such a great thing. You can listen to a 15-minute episode while you're doing the dishes or going for a walk with a buggy. It's just quite a bite-size, convenient way for me to learn. I don't have time to sit in front of, you know, websites for hours on end anymore. So I think podcasts are a great way to dip your toe in as well and to take that one step.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, let's get people taking that one step.
Yes, that's the mantra, exactly. One little step. It's you know, messaging someone, it's researching, it's listening to a podcast episode. You don't have to take the massive leap in 24 hours, and that's not possible anyway. So yeah, just do one little thing today, one thing tomorrow, and before you know it, you will have transformed your life and your business. Fantastic.
Oh, it's been very inspirational. Thank you, Anna.
Oh, thank you, Claire. Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope it was interesting for you guys listening, and look forward to your future interviews as well, Claire.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being such an easy guest for my first one.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, we will say bye to everybody just now, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Anna. Bye.
Thank you.